Hi, I'm Janice Perkins with Methods of Leaders, and I'm joined today by CB Bowman, who is a member of Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches, speaker, trainer, writer, and the CEO of Workplace Equity and Equality, an organization focused on moving intent and commitment for inclusion to action in the workplace using empathetic and experience-based communication, training, and coaching. She is also ranked as #1 coach for increasing the quality of coaching for her work as the CEO of the Association of Corporate Executive Coaches and the Miko Leadership Institute. She is ranked as number 14 by Global Gurus for her work in branding. She helps executive coaches examine and scale up their business. She hosts LinkedIn Live shows. One of them is called The Challenges of the C-Suite, which I'll be on soon. She interviews renowned leaders in the industry and in human behavior to inform executive coaches, leaders, and experts in the latest news, theories, and models of excellence. She has a CB Bowman Live, Workplace Equity and Equality, CB Bowman Live, Social Media Influencers and Thought Leaders, and she is also on Clubhouse. But hold on a minute, CB. It doesn't say anything in your bio about the most stylish with the best laugh.
Now you're embarrassing me.
True. It's true. You have the best laugh. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm super excited to be any place where you are, I want to be.
Oh, I tell you what, your sparkle is really infectious. I can't wait for people to get to know you. So let's dive in and start talking about diversity and inclusion. And so explain it to me as if I was a 5-year old.
So, I struggled with the definition between the two for a long time. And, as everybody probably has seen that cartoon where you have a fence and three little boys are different heights and so on and so forth. And I thought, it's too complicated for me. And so, simply put, diversity is inviting somebody to a party. Inclusion is asking them to dance.
Mm, that's the most beautiful way I've ever heard that described because I've seen all the same visuals as well. Thank you for that. So, talk to me about what modern day leaders lack in this area of expertise. Are they having trouble inviting people to the party or asking them to dance or both?
Both. And you're going to get me into a lot of trouble because the simple answer is they lack courage.
Mm,
And we can expand from there to talk about compassion, and we can talk about their willingness to understand what's preventing them from moving forward, and we could talk about them facing their fears and concerns. And we can talk about knowledge versus quick fix. A lot of leaders want the quick fix so that they can move on to face the
mm,
responsibilities of their board. And there is no quick fix here.
right.
So the top of the ladder, which explains it all, I believe, is courage.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, actually. And do you think that's historically changing?
I think we would like to believe that it's historically changing. I think that there are more people that are stepping up as a result of the killing of Floyd. I mean, I've seen lots of really horrible incidents that have triggered society to say, what is going on?
Hmm.
The sad part is that it fades away quickly, and people don't remember their commitment to change. And
Mm,
so then we go on to the next crisis. And there's just so many crises that we're seeing right now, especially with the pandemics, plural, going on. We have social justice, we have economics, we have mental health, we have environment, and we have COVID. And so that's a lot for any human to consume. The good part is that when you have this amount of tragedy, this amount happening, it creates awareness. Awareness bubbles up to the top. The sad part is that we are all so exhausted that it's hard to carry through with the commitments that you make.
so it's really, and I hear exactly what you're saying in the we're overwhelmed in areas that are stretching us in our culture in the past few years. I like what you said about remembering our commitment to change. So, how do we reinvigorate that passion around dignifying individuals this way?
So I'm not sure if it dignifies individuals, but I believe it's a good question. I believe that we try to take on too much.
Okay.
So let me give you a really good example. I'm for the era of Martin Luther King, and we all looked at discrimination and said it's got to change, and we took it on as a huge elephant. And the fact is, you can't eat an elephant with a gulp. You have to take it bite by bite. And so, with the killing of Floyd, I said to myself, it's time for you to get involved again. Because throughout the years during Martin Luther King, there are various things that I did to support the cause. And I got burnt out. So I didn't take care of myself. So I think first and foremost, you have to take care of your health. And if you need a rest, it's okay. It's okay to rest and come back in rejuvenated. And what rejuvenated me is I was watching a late night show, Jimmy Fallon,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a black actress on. This is right after the killing. And he said to her, "What do you think? And what can you do? And what should I do?" And, all the classic questions. And she looked at him and she said, "Quite frankly, I don't think it's my job to teach and coach white people. They should know what to do." And I listened to that and I went to sleep and I said, "Yes, right on. That's a great answer." And I woke up in the morning and I said, not so much. Wait a second. If it's not your job as a black woman or a black man or a person of color or from an indigenous population, whose job is it? And at that point, I started we and have not looked back.
Mm. So, tell me, especially as you just spoke of spanning the decades in the Martin Luther King era to now, what has changed in activism or education or need from then to now? What is the shift in context?
I'm not sure there is a shift in context. I will say there is an addition to it. And not to nitpick, but as you said that, I was thinking through the decades, Martin Luther King, Powell, Malcolm X, and I thought, what's added
Mm-hmm.
is social responsibility in the workplace like we have not seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
I've had white clients call me up and say, "That's it, CB, I'm quitting my job. My job does not represent my company that I work for, doesn't represent my moral standings." And I remember one particular client who said this to me who was with a big tech company. I mean, big. And he was so hurt and so disillusioned. He was white. And his church was doing some things to support people of color. And he said, "I just want to leave and work on that." And I said, "Why do you want to leave?" And he said, "My company is doing minimal to support people of color. I can't take it anymore." Now, this person had a high position. And I said to him, "So let me ask you a few questions. If you leave, number one, will you have the money to support your family?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Two, you're doing work with your church, which is volunteer work. Will you have the time and the money to support your interest in making a change?" And he said, "Well, I'll have the time, but not the money." I said, "That's important."
Mm-hmm.
I said, if you leave your job and your company is not doing a great job in DEI, is there somebody to take your place? In other words, can you make a difference by hiring somebody that fits into this category because of your level with the organization? And he thought and he said, yeah, I can. I said, so is the solution really to quit your job? And he said, CB, I haven't thought about it like that. I can make a difference within my company. I said, yes, you can. And with your church at the same time. And make sure that your family is kept in the style that they're accustomed to. So sometimes the answer is not as obvious as we think it is, and it's not as obvious as where our heart drives us.
Now, I love what you're saying because it ties back to what you when you mentioned courage at the beginning too, and I would now add that layer. It's a perspective, right? In that maybe I can bloom on the ground I'm planted on versus thinking I have to go find somewhere else to make a difference. So, tell me other characteristics or real examples like that of what an organization that embraces better behavior in the DEI space. What does that look like?
Bank of America.
Okay.
Bank of America, Sandra Quince and Cynthia Bowman have done an amazing job at creating a workplace where DEI is embedded into the culture. And I've interviewed Sandra on my CB Bowman Live Workplace Equity and Equality. I'd love to interview Cynthia also, but she's so busy I can't get her. um, they have created a workplace where, and this started way before Floyd, where inclusion is the main focus.
Hmm.
Inclusion of race, religion, lifestyle, sexual orientation. It's everybody is included in making a difference. From the CEO to the janitor and back up again. And you know what? You can feel it. This is going to sound really weird, but you can feel it when you walk into that bank. You feel people supporting each other who are employees. And that bubbles to the surface that, and when I found out the work that they were doing, by the way, they just received an award from We this year. I thought, no wonder why I feel good walking into this space as a customer. And I had no idea why, but it just generated this form of support, of happiness, of I'm proud of the organization that I work for. I am seen, I can contribute, and I can be heard. So one of the interviews I did was with a Dr. Mangezi, who's from South Africa. And I won't try to duplicate the words because I'll screw it up. But he said, um, in my country, the way you're greeted is by a phrase that says, I see you.
Mm.
And I said, the way you said that means something that I would love to know. And he said, it means I see you from the inside. I don't see your skin. I don't see your face, your hair, your clothes. I see you as a human being. And the response is, I am here.
Mm.
So I'm here for you to see me. Let's be together as one. Be different, but together as one. And I believe, as an outsider, that this is what Bank of America represents.
That's a really great example, and I love hearing that story. I just wrote down those two phrases because that's really profound. In an organization that's struggling to create a culture like that, what's something a leader should start doing, and what's something they should stop doing?
Honesty, complete, and stop looking for the quick fix.
And when you say that, that's really like what you described earlier, the checking the box for the board of directors or for what they feel they
Yeah.
have in social responsibility for, versus actually believing in it or being committed to it.
Yeah, so let me give you an example, and I'm going to toot my own horn for a bit. Um, Most companies go to hire the big consulting firm to solve the problem of diversity, or
Mm.
even the smaller firms. And what happens inevitably is people come in and they do a training program. And depending upon the amount, dollar amount, and the courage of the leader, the training program will either go throughout the organization. It might be different levels, like the CEO may have a 5 day training program, the C suite may have a 4 day. And as you go down the organization, excuse me, the amount of time collapses. But they've done this training program, they've hired this company to do it, and they've checked the boxes. Now everybody should be diverse and inclusive. There's a problem. No one was seen or heard.
Hmm.
So the way that we does it is that we go into an organization and we ask each person, what do you want to be seen for? What do you want to be heard for? How did you get there?
Mm.
Let's listen to the voice. And let's all listen to the voice. And then let's all figure out a mutual solution that you, Mr. or Miss Organization, have come up with. Not what we're going to say to you, you have to do. Because the minute we walk out the door, if we did that, it's gone. And we all know training programs that we've been to. And it just sounded so exciting. And the minute the person left, was like, okay, back to the grind. Let's go back to reality. And that's not how we solve this social issue.
Well, I would say on so many levels that organizations don't listen to employees and frontline workers enough. I don't think that we ask them enough questions,
No.
in regard to all kinds of areas. This one's in particular, when you're trying to really understand an emotional heartbeat and shift culture, like you're saying, it can't be from um, regurgitating information, which is what the workshop does, right? Initially, and so I love what you're saying in going all the way down to employees. Let me ask this question: what if I find myself right now listening to this, and I'm an employee in an organization? What can I do?
So, first of all, what I just said is not easy to do. It's a challenge, but in life, the best rewards come from the hardest things, right? Uh, as an employee, the way that you can personally start is go to dinner at your colleague's house and invite them over to your house and sit and have a conversation that you might have with your friends. Don't assume because they're another color they want to understand. Don't assume because their sexual orientation is different that they don't understand. Because let's just take sexual orientation. Two men or two women that are married to each other are going to have exactly the same issues as you have if it's a man and a woman. People are people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not different. People are going to eat, people are going to sleep. So have a taste of their food. with an open mind.
With an open mind, extending a bridge to connect to someone, like you said, it's never easy, but it's how we expand the character of who we are by engaging with people not like us.
So,
So,
and sorry to
no,
interrupt.
no.
And there's a scene I love in Raiders of the Lost Ark, I think it is, where sees this big cavern and there's no bridge to cross,
Mm-hmm.
and he's being told by his psychic, believe, and he takes a step, and the bridge comes. Believe, take the step.
Mm-hmm.
Or in Field of Dreams, build it, and they will come. It's not that hard.
It's not, and you have these inspirational examples, and sometimes I tell people it's like you're standing in a room with giant clown shoes on the wrong feet, but if you really look around, everybody's got them on, you know?
Absolutely.
When we when we
Absolutely. Yes,
so my example isn't quite, it doesn't have quite the finesse.
it
So
does.
when you mentioned earlier that story from Jimmy Fallon about responsibility, and so I want to come back to that and talk about where the responsibility lies in an organization.
So the responsibility lies in allowing that space to exist. In other words, people won't talk about themselves if the office environment doesn't invite it. And it can't be forced, it has to come from the heart, right? So, Zoom, here's where COVID was, I hate to say it, a benefit, because we all know it wasn't a benefit. I mean, I'm a COVID survivor. My husband is a COVID survivor. But here's what it did do, it allowed us to view the inside the homes
Hmm.
of our colleagues. It allowed us to see the children running by and how cute they were, the puppies barking, the cats crawling on the computer, the religious crosses in the background, the religious momentums that were around the house, the guitar sitting in the corner. Oh my God, I didn't know you play a guitar. Well, I play at it, I do this and I do a little. The golf clubs, it allowed us to be voyeurs into the homes and into the hearts of our colleagues. Now, let's just take that and start to build a relationship,
Hmm.
start to learn from others.
So let me ask you this question, going on the dark side for just a minute. What do we risk? What is the chance of loss when we don't do this, CB?
So, Maslow's theory of human communication and human motivation, the whole pyramid is what we miss. We miss experiencing a new kind of love. We miss experiencing to the fullest degree self actualization because we are not experiencing the world as it is. Hey, listen, I remember my first trip to the Far East. It was such an eye opening experience because, in my naive mind, I couldn't understand why people who come over from Asia push to get into the subway in New York. I'm like, what is that about? Right? When I was in Asia, I realized because I saw this, they have something called, and I'm translating it, pushers, where people are paid to push you into the subway to pack you in because there's so many people and so little space. So now all of a sudden I understood the mindset. And my anger went away, and instead compassion replaced it, and understanding replaced it. we risk losing all of that exposure when we don't travel, when we don't talk to people. Okay, not everybody has the money to travel, but what does it cost to talk to people? Now, there's two parts to this, and you asked me before who's responsible. It's both sides. Because you, as a white woman, if you can't ask me a question like, do you get suntan? Can I touch your hair? Most people of color are going to be really upset with those questions. My perspective is bring it on, because then that allows me to ask you questions. How do you get your hair curly? It's not naturally curly. What's going on there? Right? Why are you always interested in getting a suntan? Does that hurt your skin? So, what happens is we then start to do this. We bond together through an understanding. I could say to my white friends, hey, watch out, the sun is strong, right? Or they could say that to me. Hey, CB, are you taking care to make sure that you won't get sunburned? Because I'm going to tell you, when I was a kid and I went to one of the islands, I don't remember which it was, I believed the stories that I wouldn't get sunburned. And I almost ended up in the hospital. I was so sunburned that I couldn't even wear clothes because I stayed out and it was hazy out. And I thought, I'm good to go. Mistake. So we don't accept the information from our own culture. We don't accept the information from the other culture. Where are we? We stand in isolation instead of standing together.
So there's a couple things that are coming to mind as you're talking, because even in regular communication with people of any kind in a team, I talk about assumption suitcases, the things we drag along that we bring into the encounter that aren't invited. And they devalue that relationship right off the bat. And when
Absolutely.
you're talking about curiosity, and that I basically am not enabling myself to be curious about another person because I've drug in some sort of barriers. There are assumptions and barriers in my suitcase. And so we don't have the potential in relationship, CB. If I drag that stuff in and I can't be curious about you, we would have never belly laughed, first of all, if we couldn't have been curious about each other.
Right.
We devalue what is possible here, what the potential is between two people when we don't allow curiosity to thrive.
And we also have to allow kindness.
Mm.
So, as educated as I am and as traveled as I am, I was in a conversation with one of the members from the We faculty who happens to be Asian. And we were doing a timeline for people of color throughout history. And we were looking at the loss of wealth, et cetera, et cetera. And she said to me, well, CB, we're focused on people of color. We haven't focused on the Latin community. We haven't focused on the LGBTQ plus community. We haven't focused on the Asian community. And I looked at her and I said, what are you talking about with the Asian community? This was right at the tip before it started for Asian hate. And she kindly said, CB, Asians have experienced hate for a long time. I had to stop and think, what is she talking about? And then it hit me. The atom bomb attack on American soil, the camps. And I just wanted to hang my head in shame because I'm talking about people who have forgotten about Floyd. How did I forget that? So we all are subject to forgetting. No one is perfect, but we need our friends to remind us in a way that doesn't make us feel like less of a person. Just to remind us we've been through stuff too.
Hmm. Thank you for
So,
sharing that
kindness.
story.
Yeah.
No, that was really vulnerable of you to share that story. I love it as an example of an honest relationship that you had in which you could be curious, and that bridge was open and built strong,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so let me ask you one more question as we start to get toward the end here, because this has been a super enriching conversation that I hope people can really learn from. What over the past couple of years in the pandemic and crisis, how does that further illuminate issues in the DEI space in a corporation?
So, with every crisis, we learn more, right? We learn from Floyd. We learn from the burning of Black Wall Street. We learn from Asian hate. We learn from what just happened in Canada with the indigenous population and the killing of the children. So, my answer is with everything, we learn more if we're open to it. The challenge is keeping it in front of us so that we can come together to get to solution. And that is not easy. And that's why we have to have colleagues and friends who say to us, wait a second, did you forget?
Hmm.
Did you forget?
That's a really healthy question too. So, CB, this is so enriching, and I love the work that you're doing at your organization, as well as ACEC, and you are in the queue to have a course on this very thing in the Methods of Leaders platform. Tell me about why that would be important for an organization to have as a tool.
Oh my gosh. You know what? The more training, even though I sort of poo poo training, um, but the more exposure, the more knowledge you get, the better. And the way that you do training is so different than other organizations. S- I don't know how to explain it, but you find experts, they allow themselves to be open and to talk from the heart. They're not talking at you, they're having a conversation with you. Such a big difference. And the quality that you and your team use to put this forth. I mean, MG 100 is made up of superstars, and everybody that I know that's been on your platform has raved about it. Everybody has looked amazing. And we've all, each being at the top of our game, have learned from watching your training programs. So your firm is the exception. And what's important for me is to be part of your cohort to speak about a subject that is difficult for
Hmm.
all of us, including me.
Well, and I appreciate the way you allow me to thread this back through your entire conversation when we talked about training versus boots on the ground. And that is what we try to do with Methods of Leaders is we don't want you to go in a corner and just watch information, although it is incredibly interactive and reflective. It is for a group to discuss. It's to become part of an organization, not just a tool in the belt. And that is exactly how it becomes applicable is because a group actually gnaws on that information and figures out how to make that part of their culture. That's part of the work that comes out of Methods of Leaders. It's not just like you said, learning something new is fantastic, and a willingness to open your mind, fantastic. but how do I apply it and how do we make it
Yes.
part of where we are?
Yeah. That's what your training does. It gives you an opportunity to apply it. And the fact that you can watch it over again
Mm-hmm.
for anything you may have missed, anything that you're not sure of. And you offer the ability for it to really sink in, people to be able to grab it and make it their own. Thank you for doing that for us.
Oh, you're welcome. I can't claim any of the credit whatsoever. The team is phenomenal. They're incredibly talented. The bench is very strong. So I find it an honor to get to work with them. I'm just sorry that for all of our viewers, this was a really deep and thought-provoking conversation today, so I couldn't say funny things along the journey to let them hear you belly laugh 3 or 4 times. So I apologize for that because it is the best laugh ever. But I want you to share as we exit. How can people find you, CB?
So, LinkedIn, of course, who's not on LinkedIn, right? But the other is to visit the WE website, which is WEE-consulting.org. And you'll find me there. And you'll also find me on cbbowman.com. I think that's it. So if you Google me, you'll find me. And I am really looking forward to anybody that listens to any of your programs reach out to me because I know that those are quality folks.
Oh, well, thank you so much for all your time today. I'm Janice Perkins with Methods of Leaders. You can find us at methodsof.com. Thank you, CB Bowman. It is always a pleasure and a delight.
Thank you, my friend.